Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and today we're working on a 2000 Pontiac Trans Am Firebird. Within this install, we're going to show you how to replace the factory radio with a doubled-in touchscreen stereo. Now this install will apply if you have the Monsoon factory system or you don't. The install process will be just the same. Beast Audio Installation channel is sponsored by NVX and Sonic Electronics. Get 10% off all speakers, amplifiers, wiring kits, and more with coupon code PBAI at NVX. Also get 5% off all car audio components at Sonic Electronics with coupon code ProvoBeast. Okay, so within this install, we're going to show you how to pull this factory radio out. Now be sure you've already removed any CDs here in this slot if it is so equipped. Now just using a panel popping tool, what we're going to do is just slowly work this out on both ends here. Now I choose these panel tools just because they are easy on the plastic and you don't end up damaging any of the surrounding dash panel. Okay, we got 4 clips on here. Once that's out, put this aside. Now we actually won't be using this anymore. The new kit that we're going with actually has a larger doubled-in opening, and so we'll show you that here in a moment. Now we're using a 9/32, which does fit. It's a little bit loose, so you could probably find something just a hair smaller. Basically what we're going to do is loosen all these screws all the way around the radio and our HVAC controls. Okay, here on the back of the radio, go ahead and just squeeze in the little tabs and disconnect your harness. Once both ends are done, you are good to go. In case you do sell a car, you can still keep the factory radio, so I suggest that. At this point, everything's pulled apart. Now we're going to head over to the bench and begin prepping the dash kit, the radio, our wiring harness, and then reassembly here. Okay, so here at the bench, parts that we're going to need. The dash kit to fit a doubled-in is the Metra 953312G for Pontiac Firebird. Now it's for 93 to 02. It actually fits quite a range of years. We're going to need this kit. In addition, we're going to need the wiring harness, which is the 70-1858. Now, since this model is equipped with steering wheel controls, we're going to need the ASWC1 steering wheel control module. And then since this is a Pioneer, we're also using a micro bypass for options, settings, and video in motion. We're using a Metra 40-GM10 antenna adapter. And then finally, since these new Pioneers have the aux and USB on the rear, we're using a relocation kit. So let's go ahead and get started here. Now you can kind of see just the slight difference. Now since the double-in is much bigger than the single din and a half factory radio, we actually had to do a little bit of cutting. Now we have this little handsaw. What we did is just cut along this line here, and then same right here as well. Just to pop this free, to pull this on out. What that's going to do is now provide just a hair more space for a doubled-in, just to have enough room to slip into this pocket here. Alright, so the next thing we need to do, after we've prepped the dash kit, is go ahead and prepare our wiring harness. And what we're going to do with this wiring harness is just strip these ends. Now these fortunately are pre-stripped. We grab our radio harness, which in this case is a Pioneer. What we're going to do is undo this little twist tie here and also strip all these ends. And at most aftermarket harnesses, you're able to actually just marry up colors. Now, you're welcome to use butt connectors, kind of like these ones that we have here, or use the better scenario and actually solder your connections and use heat shrink. So, if you're comfortable soldering, please do that. That's the better connection. If not, using those butt connectors and a really good designated crimper actually does the job pretty well. Alright, so I spent some time to strip back all the wires, and I soldered everything here. I put some heat shrink on the end, so as soon as I'm all done and good to go here. I'll pull the heat shrink over and actually shrink it nice and tight, nice and clean. I also did, we're doing a micro pipe pass, and I started soldering that in as well. So go ahead and pull your heat shrink up and over your solders, and yeah, get that all ready to go. Alright, so we went ahead and connected all our wire. We used heat shrink, soldered everything up nice and tidy. We have here our backup camera wire. We're going to focus that in another video, but essentially we left that out, and we'll tie that in separately with its own cable. This is our trigger wire, which will run actually to the reverse light in the back. We're just going to extend this wire all the way back there. So something for a later install. And then this lead hanging off, this is our remote turn on wire. We're adding a 5-channel amplifier and eventually bypassing the factory monsoon amp. So we have that lead off there, so we can connect into that, which will go to our aftermarket amplifier. At this point, we're going to zip tie everything up. I actually have some tested tape here. It's kind of like a cloth tape. We're going to wrap everything up to make it look factory. And really the only wire that we didn't use is this mute wire. Most of the time with these Pioneers, unless you have a designated area for a mute wire, you really don't use them. So go ahead and just wrap that up in your harness itself. Alright, so we got everything taped up nice. We got our ASWC one also connected. What we did, this requires power and ground. As you can see here on the end, there's red and the black. We just tied it into the red and black as we soldered everything together in the main harness there. The only wire that you need off the ASWC one is this yellow-green wire. Everything else, all the other ones, all these other wires, just tape off and hide in there. And then you've got the main plug that actually plugs into the back of the radio. This goes into the WR slot on the back of the radio. So really, all this requires is 4 different connections. You got power, ground, which is the yellow and the black, which is the red and the black. You have your connection to the radio, and then connection to the car. So that's it for steering wheel controls. These other leads, we're adding a backup camera later, and this will be switch power and ground. In the event I want to add something there, we'll put connectors on the end. Again, this is a remote turn-on wire, and yep, that's about it. There's our harness all cleaned up. It actually looks nice and tidy and clean. At this point, we're going to head to the car and begin programming the ASWC one, getting our radio mounted, and getting really everything else buttoned up. What we're going to do here in the car before we actually get everything back in the dash is start programming steering wheel controls, making sure everything works. Now the connection that you need to make for your yellow and green wire is there's going to be on this gray side of the harness a solid blue wire, which is your steering wheel control wire. We used a T-tap so we can disconnect that along with the harness in the event we have to pull this out. We got our main harness plugged in, and on the back of the radio here we got our WR plugged in for our steering wheel controls. It kind of looks like an aux, but it's not. Main harness is plugged in, and we have our antenna just for sound. Now this is just so we can start programming our steering wheel controls. Next thing is you want to take your key, put it in the ignition, and just cycle it to on. You don't have to start it. What you're going to do too is push the reset button on the module. And what that's going to do is start making that light blink there really fast. Hold volume up. And you're going to continue to hold volume up until your unit stops flashing. Right now it's going through all these rapid flashes, essentially detecting what type of car that you're running and what type of radio we're running. And so it's going through that procedure now. I'm still holding it. Let go once it stops blinking, and then it'll go through a series of small green flashes, and then it'll go through a series of small red flashes. And at this point, if it stays solid red and it doesn't blink, it says it's successfully paired. Now we're going to test it. So I'll hit volume up on the steering wheel, and sure enough, volume up's working great. Mute is working great. Play goes through sources. Seek up works. Seek down works. AM FM works. Perfect. So at this point, we still need to run the USB wire, our Bluetooth mic, and we're going to show you a little bit of a mod that we're going to modify a cigarette lighter so we can put a relocation kit as we showed earlier. Now we will actually want to replace this cigarette lighter because there's actually a power point down below as well. So we're going to replace this one and put our aux and USB input there instead of this one, since they're so close to each other. generally this customer only uses this to charge their accessories anyway, so it makes sense. To get that out, we need to pop this bezel out, and to do so, pull your shifter all the way back, and there on the back here is going to be a little bit of a pin that I used a flathead to pull out. And once you've done so, you can actually just kind of work this up and down, and that will pop on out. Just like so. What that's going to do now is when we open this, there's going to be 2 screws there, same size as all the others. And this will just kind of start wiggling free. Once I pull the gear shifter all the way back, I disconnected the harness. Just pop this through the hole, and the whole center piece will actually just come on out. Now if you have a connection there for your illumination, just go ahead and disconnect that. Alright, so we have our center console piece out. It was actually 2 screws, couple harnesses, and popping that center guy on out, it actually comes out all in one piece. So what we're going to do is, looking at this portion here, we're going to relieve these little tabs up all the way around so we can slide that whole housing out, leaving just the hole. Then we may have to just make it a hair bit bigger, but our USB adapter will actually plug right into that hole, and then we can run the aux and USB to the back of the radio, and it kind of looks like a factory install. Alright, so what I've done is I'll show you once I pop this centerpiece out first. There's going to be a tab here and a tab here from the inside, and if you can get from the outside and pop those tabs out, which essentially are in this outer housing, you can actually pop then the rest out, just like so. Okay, just like so. Super clean. And again, there's just a nut on the back that holds it on. Okay, so for the Bluetooth mic, this cover actually just comes on off. The way it does so is there's going to be 2 Phillips up here. Pull those out, and the whole pillar just pulls on out in one piece, which is actually quite nice. Then you can run the back camera wire on the factory wiring. What we're going to do is go down. And then okay, so we put the cover back on, and what we're going to do is just start tucking this. Now you'll notice that there is actually an under panel here, which acts like a nice shelf. If you pop that down, there's a little bit of insulation, but you can actually start running cable between the bottom and this little plastic cover here up underneath. And that's a straight shot up through that cavity hole, and then we'll feed it up into the radio cavity. We're just about done. We got our Bluetooth mic run up underneath into the cavity. Here we go, and there's the rest of it that'll just plug in. Our aux and USB mod that we showed a little previously there, we popped out the cigarette lighter. That's in there, and it looks super nice and tucked away, which is perfect, and that just comes out right here as well. Okay, we've got everything connected on the back of the radio. Our USB aux wired remote for our steering wheel controls. We have our mic, our main wiring harness, our 3 sets of channels, front, rear, sub, our backup camera wire, and our Motorola AM/FM connection. A lot of good connections there. Let's get the radio on the dash. In a different video, we're also going to be running a backup camera video wire and power for the camera. And we're also going to be adding a 5-channel amplifier. So we'll add a couple of other things here before we put this in. But other than that, for the basic radio setup, that's about it. Essentially, all this will just tuck back behind the dash. What this will do is go right there, and then our dash bezel, once we put in the screws, will actually fit right around. And we got it in back in the dash, put our 3 factory screws back in. With this fitment here, we actually got it just about perfect, so it just barely sticks through this dash pocket. And then we put our dash bezel back on, which is just held on with pressure up and around the radio. So let's go ahead and do a test for you. Put the key in here. Okay, there you are. Perfect. Our steering wheel controls. Perfect. Thanks guys for watching the channel. We'll have other cool install videos on this car in the links below in the description. If you have any questions, be sure to ask them, and we'll certainly see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.